Welcome to Futuristic Tech Trends. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for notifications.
Hello everyone. In this lecture we will talk about activities. Activities are actually the most important, you can say, functionality that is provided in Android. So whenever we start working in Android, the first thing we should know about is the Android activities. So first of all, we should discuss number one, what an activity is. So we should write the point 1. What is an activity? Activity. So, uh, an activity is like, you can say, the first entry point. Like it's like a single screen which you see, for example, on your mobile phone, for maybe for logging into an application, say a login screen, you know. In the case of, for example, a calling app, a call screen, for example, when, for example, you have Viber or WhatsApp, you have, for example, when you click on the contacts, you get a screen with the list of contacts in it, so a contact screen, this screen, which you can say has a UI for the user interface, with buttons, list views, text views, and which contains all these things, all these controls. This screen is actually called an activity. You can say it's like a kind of a single functionality that this an activity is providing, for performing a certain kind of functionality in your project, and you can have, for example, multiple activities, login, call, contact, and all those different kind of activities or screens, activities, like they are provided with a UI that you can use to perform a certain kind of functionality. So that's an activity. So a certain kind of a specific, you can say, a task or a complete, you can say, a functionality, one single functionality, you can say, in a more precise way that the users are doing. It's done by using this activity, and these activities, with different activities, they interact with each other, they call each other, and you can minimize one, you can have one in the background, you can one have in the foreground, which is then the actual screen at that time, so you scroll back, you go back to different screens in a mobile phone. You can say these are all activities that are going in the background, foreground. You close the app, the activities are closed, or stopped. So this is a little bit of a description of what actually an activity is. Now, second more important thing that we need to know about the activities is the different states in an activity. States in an activity. So any activity actually can have up to 4 states, uh, and number 1 of this state is, for example, if the activity is in the foreground, you can say, or foreground or active state. This is the first state. The second state is that if an activity is, for example, kind of it lost its focus, it's still in the foreground, but it's not in focus. So this is the second state, not in focus, and this state you can say as a paused state. There's a function, for example, on pause, and all these functionalities are provided for each of these states. And C is, for example, if the state is a stop state. Stop state is when, for example, activity is below another activity, activity below other activity. So this is a stop state. And there is another state, T, which is, for example, if the activity is either, if it is paused or stopped, then the system, for example, can kill the activity, and then, for example, if you want to get it back, you have to resume it again, so these are the four states in an activity. And then one more important thing we should know is how we initialize an activity at the start. The initialize activity is done by calling a function. So initializing the activity is done by the function on create. When you create the activity, this function is the first one you call, and the activity is initialized at the same time. So this is also very important to know. And how you, for example, if you how, because there has to be a layout at the end, which is an XML file, that we have discussed before in our resources. We have the layout.xml, and for each activity we have this layout file. How can we load this layout is using set content view. So this function will set the layout for your activity. By the layout we mean the look and feel of the activity, or the UI, this XML file dot XML layout dot XML file. So let us define all these things that we describe here about the Android activity in a more pictorial way, so that you understand it better, and you'll remember it more easily. So let's make the diagram of the activity and how it works. So this is how we can start defining the activity, how the activity, which processes or states the activity goes through when it is first launched and when it is destroyed, like complete kind of a life cycle of the activity. So first of all, here let's say we just launch the activity, launch launch the activity. So we do this inside in the code by using this onCreate function, like where the activity is created on create. And this onCreate is the first, you can say, callback. These are all actually the callbacks, when, for example, you have, as I told you, that if you, for example, kind of stop the activity by selecting another activity over it, then, and then the user tries to come back, that it can go to this no, sorry, that is the start. On create is the first callback when you first launch the activity. So the on create is only at the first time called. So this is the on create function that will do this. This after the activity is created, the next step, or the process that the activity goes through, or the phase, that is the start phase. In the start phase means that the activity first becomes visible to the user. This UI becomes visible to the user, and the function for this is onStart. It is also a callback function. For example, from pause and from stop, you can come back to the start function. And then there is one resume. Resume is, for example, when you this is on resume function. For example, if an activity has lost focus, which means this is paused. Lost focus means on paused. Then if you make it visible again make it in the focus again by just clicking somewhere on the activity, then this pause function, from the pause it uses this callback on resume, and the activity comes back to the from on pause process to the on resume process. In the same way, the next phase or step in the activity lifecycle is stop, which is on stop. On stop means that the activity is maybe now hidden, and user has navigated to some other activities. So during the on stop, the system process can also kill the activity process. And for example, if the activity process is killed, so if the activity process is killed, then after the on stop is called, the the user needs to relaunch the activity, so it will again use this. After launching, it will use again this on create callback for the creation process. But let's say from onStop the user navigates again to the activity, then before it is killed, then this will come to the from the stop to the on start phase. So this will be the callback. If for example the activity is stopped, it's finished, it's hidden by some other activity in the system, and it is not killed before the system kills it, because the system can hold a certain amount of activities in the RAM for your application. But if it is not killed, this particular activity, and the user navigates back, then this from onStop it will come to the onStart activity. From stop phase, its activity goes to destroy if the system destroys your activity or removes it or kills it completely. And then after the destroy, it means the next last step is that the shutdown of the activity takes place. Shut down. So this is a kind of a pictorial representation, let's say, of our Android activity complete life cycle. And I hope you understood it now better, what I mean when I say that how the activity life cycle is working. Um, and you can keep this diagram saved for kind of as a reference if you forget these different states or different phases inside an activity process. Now that's it. So now we will go and try to write a simple small project with an activity that has say some buttons or some text views or some list views, and is performing different functions, and we can then further explain these activity states while doing the project.
That was awesome, thank you.
Please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon for notifications.